When you first walk in outdoors.
Outside, like that.
Yeah. Go right in.
Hey, Adam,
It's very nice.
can you unmute and just test your audio?
Testing, testing, testing.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, 7:30, I'd like to call the Madison Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise to the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start out with the school community session and public participation. Emily, if you could read it.
The board welcomes public comment at our meetings, whether you're joining us online or in person. We ask that you state your name and address. We do limit comment to 3 minutes. It should not be expected that the board or administration will respond, as it's not a time for public discussion. If necessary, the community member will be contacted for follow-up. Do we have any members in person who would like to speak? Do we have anyone online? If you'd like to speak, just raise your hand online. I don't see any. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Board of Education Student Representatives report. I see that Brooke is home studying this evening. Eli, give us your best shot.
All right, so for the past 2 Tuesdays, the juniors have taken the SAT and the NGSS test, which is very exciting for me because I got a 3-hour delay for the past couple Tuesdays. And both tests are done on computers, and I heard there were no technical difficulties, so that's obviously a positive thing. National Honor Society applications were sent out to juniors, which I remember doing last year. Everyone puts them off until after April break, so they have a couple of days to rush and get them all together, submit their applications. The hands-on stage crew is in their final preparations for their play Into the Woods, which should be shown in the Daniel Hand cafeteria on the 18th, 19th, and the 20th. And an email will be sent out to parents where they can purchase tickets. Habitat for Humanity is running their annual Hands Got Talent fundraiser where it's a talent show on April 26th, and they'll raise money for Habitat for Humanity. And the money will go towards building homes or restructuring homes for the less fortunate. Spring sports are in full swing. I know the boys and girls lacrosse teams both played their first games today. I'm supposed to have a track meet tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to happen due to weather. And tomorrow's advisory, you'll see junior advisory groups meet up with sophomore advisory groups and just talk about their experience as a junior and kind of what to expect.
Great, any questions? Eli, I don't want to embarrass you in front of everyone, but I do want to just say, we learned right before the meeting that Eli got into the school of his dreams in the honors program. And we're very proud of you and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And you can
Go home and
get ready for your week that won't happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Congrats.
Right, and now the superintendent's report, Dr. Cook.
Yes, before I start, I'm gonna call on Gail to share a report. She attended the EL Family Art Night tonight. For me, I was able to attend it last year, but we had meetings earlier tonight, so I wasn't able to attend it. But for me, last year, what I saw, and I think it expanded this year, was one of the best examples of family community engagement that we have, and just a great connection for families. And so Gail, maybe you could share a few
Yeah,
words
I
about that.
have to give a shout out to our EL teachers, Mary Merkel Scotland and Mary Beth Sarr for organizing this night. So this has run for a couple of years now. And it's a night where all of our English language learners can gather together and their families. Tonight, I was astounded. There were about 50 people there. The night starts out with pizza and cookies and beverages, and the art teachers then did a presentation on different representations of cultural quilts, art quilts from various cultures, and everybody kind of studied the patterns. And there were also clearly on display an incredible amount of translation for summer programs and flyers in different languages, so families could take advantage of our community offerings during the summer. And then the entire group, families, and I'm talking our youngest attendee, I kid you not, was 3 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's so bitty. And the oldest student that we had was from the high school. So this is all different languages. We had today a student enroll in one of our elementary schools that is a cousin of 3 other students that are attending. So it was really exciting. They move into the art room and they're using all different crafts and materials to make a square that they will then put together, and it will make a large quilt representing the 6 weeks of the evening. So it was just great. Everybody was talking, and shout out to Chang. She was there as well. Had done a lot of translating, so it was a lovely night. Yeah, it looked like it was well underway. So,
Where was it held?
right at Polson. So right where the voting was one entrance, and then Family Art Night was the other. Family Art Night looked really exciting.
More fun. More exciting than
Yes, but it was very well lit, very well lit parking lot.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was terrific, and just nice to see our population growing.
And is that an annual event, you said?
It has been for the past couple of years. We're using our Title IV funds to fund the evening, so that's through Learn. We do kind of a collaborative one because our numbers are small, but it's been funded for the past couple of years. We also did another day that was RJ Julia in the public library. All the librarians went, and
Is that anybody could go?
that's all our EL students.
Yeah,
Again, they're
yeah.
EL
I mean, I
kids.
didn't see it, I don't know why I didn't.
It's we sent it out to our families that are registered as dual language, and they all attend. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
yeah, it's neat.
I went last year and it was great. It
Yeah,
was such a warm and lovely, they really created a warm and lovely space for everyone to feel included.
and of course, I'm just always so proud of the staff for volunteering their time and to see it worth their time. So it was good.
That's great.
That's one.
So thank you for letting me.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes,
Shout out
thank you.
for
And
EL.
I just have one other thing to say, that it's girls across wonderful.
It's great. So as we get started, I know we have Adam Lovace with us from Colliers. I'm excited that he's going to give us an update on the building project. And well, Adam is being promoted and brought on the screen. Just want to share, I know the board's aware, the public may not, although it was a small groundbreaking ceremony planned. It is postponed. We're going to go with April 19th at 9:30 a.m. For that. With the weather tomorrow and the limitations on the site, it was just not going to work, and that was a overwhelming recommendation from our construction people, as well as other considerations like the school bus that was going to bring us to the site would, you know, potentially get stuck in so we just did not feel like it was worth risking with the high winds as well. So thank you for the board being flexible. We all can make the 19th. So if you can.
He's there.
Oh, hi Adam.
Good evening, everyone. So as Dr. Cook mentioned, I just wanted to come back to the board and provide an update because it's been a moment since shared sort of project status and whatnot with you all. So overall, it's good news recently on a number of fronts. If I could, I'll share my screen here for a bit as I kind of talk through schedule and current status, and then I'll get into sort of upcoming items and just a budget update as well. In terms of project schedule, we're moving along about as systematically as any project ever could. The original intent was to get out for construction. You see here this brown bar here. Right between March and April, get out to construction in that time period with an intended completion date for sort of turnover to the town right at the end of May, and then final completion of the project with the wrap-up items, site plantings, those sorts of things by the end of October, and that's exactly where we're at. Some of the considerations that have been made to kind of react to market forces and procurement and long lead items and things like that. We did have some early procurement packages at the end of 2023 and some early release of some of the site work and concrete and steel subcontractors at the end of February. And all those were good coordination amongst the project team and the town to get things kicked off early and moving, so that way we could keep on schedule, despite some of the long durations for electrical switch gears and things of that nature. So all good news on the schedule front. In terms of the overall contracts for the phases of the project, you may have heard that on the 25th of was it a week ago? The Board of Selectmen confirmed the big contract with Gilbane, the guaranteed maximum price GMP contract amendment. Talk about the numbers here in a minute, but that effectively was the last major, I don't want to say hurdle, but contractual milestone with Gilbane to release them to start, building all the components of the school.
He's frozen. I think we lost him.
He's still there.
He's definitely frozen.
That's on his end, not mine.
Yeah. What is the saving district?
Just it's just a placeholder for what we kind of are in terms of the pre-K to 5 stuff.
Like kids.
Yeah, we are not changing the boundary.
Okay.
Yes.
Like we already did that. Okay.
Just to announce for the folks at home, it appears that our speaker is frozen.
Adam, if you can hear me, if you want to try leaving the meeting and coming back on, there we go.
Yeah, I think it was there.
Yeah.
Give him a second.
And also I'll point out, just all of our board members are here this
You lost
evening.
power?
Maureen is available
You
on
lost
Zoom as
power?
well.
Adam has lost power. So,
That's a problem.
Unlikely he's gonna, well, he can come back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just keep going. Oops.
we'll keep going and return to the item.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because of me.
All right, so now we're moving on to the
You can always strike.
second.
I'm just telling him to let me know if
Yeah.
it comes back. So, our second bullet point is a discussion of budget reduction. I think that's probably best achieved through the finance committee report. So I spoke to Galen Kelly, and he's going to lead that report, and then I certainly respond at that point as well. I want to share with the board, I know our schools will be doing recognitions, and that tomorrow is Paraprofessionals Day across the country, and so we're excited to celebrate our wonderful paraprofessionals that we have in our district. We certainly could not run the district without the hard work and dedication of our paraprofessionals. They are deeply involved in the education of our students. When you go into an elementary school, you see them working, teaching reading and math alongside of our elementary students. And he is backed by a phone, so I'll just complete this part of the report as Adam is rejoining. But you know, as I mentioned, our schools will recognize our paraprofessionals tomorrow, and we could not run the district without them, so we're very appreciative. I also wanted to share, because I received a few questions between I believe it was 2 meetings ago and this meeting about our pre-K setup. I had shared at that meeting that we are splitting our pre-K. We have spoken with the staff at TCLC and as well as our elementary staff. Pre-K experts believe that the best setup for pre-K is to be connected with kindergarten. It does not mean it has to happen that way. You can have a very successful pre-K, and I think we have a very successful pre-K on its own. But when ideally it's set up connected to kindergarten, that is the preferred method. It also reduces a transition for our students. So our students that would be in the boundary of Brown School would attend most likely, you know, unless there was some different consideration, Brown School for pre-K, and that would be, you know, like I said, one less transition for those students. We do not see that this would cause additional costs. We're trending towards having to offer for pre-K at this point anyway, and so that looks like we may have to in the 25-26 school year. It also frees up some space considerations from Neck River Elementary School, which, as the board knows, is very tight for space. And it was built with 4 pre-K or kindergarten classrooms that certainly can be used for first grade as well. So if we're only using 2 of those, it will allow us some additional space and avoid art on the card or other types of moves that we would, you know, not want to make in our new elementary school with our increasing elementary population. So I think this is the best way. It's been pretty universal amongst the administrative team, and got some good reaction from staff. Of course, some questions of where they will go and how that will work, but we're working through that now, just as we are with all of our staff. So, no questions. I'll turn it back to Adam. Adam, thank you for rejoining us. You're back on the floor.
All right, apologies for that, but we'll continue. I was basically done with visuals anyway. So in terms of, we just went through schedule, so we're moving along. The construction progress actually has started. If you were to drive by the site, you would mostly see fencing with piles of dirt. So not much excitement to share right now, but I can assure you that the project team is excited to have to deal with dirt as opposed to just documents. So it's good progress. The overall schedule for the next month or so will continue to heavily revolve around earthwork and starting to get into some of the concrete foundations and things of that nature. So when we have the groundbreaking ceremony, there may be some digging out of foundations and start of some of that concrete work, but it'll take a little bit before we start seeing some of the skeleton of the building start to be erected and start to take shape. So. But still, good progress being made on that front. And then in terms of next steps for the project, we've, like I mentioned, we had gotten our phase 1 early procurement and phase 2 construction phase is approved and contract signed. The next two phases, the final two phases of the project from a document and approval standpoint will be the furniture, audiovisual and IT package, and then also a playground package. So right now Tecton is starting, Tecton, the architect, is starting to get spun up on going through those final design processes, which, as with main construction, will involve input from the principal and Dr. Cook's office and the end users to formulate the furniture packages. We'll go through, develop the documents. Similar to the previous phases, will require the approvals of the Board of Education, School Building Committee, Superintendent, and then approval through the state before we go out to bid and get those scopes of work priced and purchased in time for delivery at the end of the project. So those are items that'll be coming down the pipe from a project team, besides just the overall construction progress. Any questions on schedule or anything like that before I just touch on budget quickly?
I have a question. So sounds great. That's wonderful. What about the parking with sidewalks and the outside lighting? Well, that's all later on, or?
Say that one more time. It was hard to hear.
You know, the parking lots and the sidewalks and the lighting, the outside part of it, of the construction.
Yep. So that's part of the current design and package that's been approved. So in terms of the lighting design, that's all been through the not only the design team reviews, but also the planning and zoning committee and architectural review board for not only the parking counts and design, but the lighting, and that's all purchased and procured as part of the Gilbane contract.
Did you have a question, Steve? Oh, okay, thank you. It appears there are no other questions. If you want to proceed, thank you.
Yep. So just as an update on the money side of things, if you recall, we had an original construction budget of approximately $46.5 million, which was increased based on some of the estimates and projected escalations up to approximately $52.5 million. Once we had shifted money over from Polson, as well as the moving money from contingency to help secure the construction budget going into bidding. The bidding was actually very favorable. I think Gilbane did a great job of soliciting interest in the project, and there were a number of packages which had far more bidders than several other projects that we've been seeing recently. So lots of bids tends to translate into competitive pricing, which translates into favorable contracts for the town. So the end result from the bidding process was a contract with Gilbane for just over 48 million, as compared to that 52.5. I do want to point out, as I mentioned at the School Building Committee and Board of Selectmen, 48 is still larger than the original 46.5. So that is, does not like to say that there was no need to do the value engineering or the alternates or any of the good work done by Board of Ed, by School Building Committee, by Board of Selectmen. All that was very prudent, and we have a good situation moving forward where we're on sound financial footing moving into construction. There will be discussions across the town as to how to manage that, let's say, that surplus of monies within the project in terms of reshifting project money or bolstering contingency. There's also talks about Ryerson demolition or solar panels for the project. Those are all considerations that will be made and discussed as we move forward, but each one has its own nuances and needs to be coordinated with things like reimbursement from the state, as well as, ensuring sufficient funds for this project, et cetera, et cetera. So those discussions will be forthcoming over the ensuing months, but as of right now, we're happy to be moving forward and are in a good spot financially, particularly as compared with some of the concerns we had as the estimates with projected escalation were first developed. So with that, that's the sort of the 80,000 foot view on my update. If there are any other questions you have for me.
Other questions? No.
I have a question.
Yes, we have a question from Diane.
So would you consider then shifting the money back to, the contingency fund? In case you need it, later?
That is in terms of just the immediate short-term use of how the monies will play in terms of just where they allocate in the budget. That's how we would treat it for now. Where it goes from there, that's what the next discussions will be. Does it get pulled out for some other scope? Does it get pulled out of the project? So in the immediate term, yes, it's part of just the extra contingency funds, but there's that discussion of what to do with it. And so ensuring that there is an appropriately healthy contingency is definitely part of the discussion. So that way it's the surplus funds isn't spent or transferred and then all of a sudden we're back because there's some unforeseen condition in construction. So yeah, exactly.
I have a question. So would that money that was taken out of Paulson, would that go back to Paulson then? If there was extra money?
So what Adam, so I was just gonna answer that. That ultimately becomes the decision of the school building committee. So they could do that at the end, they could do that sooner. That was one of the discussions they had at one of the recent meetings.
Yes, the school building committee and board of selectmen are reviewing that as we move forward. And when that decision gets made may be dependent upon a number of factors and how we get through with the first part of construction. So again, ultimately a town decision. So we'll provide the data to help make said decision, and then we'll go from there.
And thank you, Adam. You'll recall that I reported in the past that at the school building committee meetings, and we also had to vote as a board on some of this and discuss it in prior meetings, but before the bids went out, when we were in the plan and design phase, there was concern because we were planning conservatively that if the bids came in higher with all the, certain, we had supply chain issues and some inflationary pressures in the market and delays in construction materials being supply chain. So we planned very conservatively, and with that conservative planning, it appeared that we might have been going over in scope a bit. So the school building committee worked in conjunction with us and with others to kind of take out some of the materials and some of the planned items for the new school and convert them into either completely get rid of them or convert them into what's called add alternates or bid alternates. And the idea is you wait and see how the bids come in. If they come in favorably, which they have, then you can consider potentially putting some of those items back in. But that gets thrown into the mix along with the other ways of potentially using the money, because I have to say, to the great credit of the school building committee, they were very judicious in what they determined to take out of the design when they were conservatively doing the what is that phase called? The value engineer, thank you. The value engineering phase. They didn't take anything out that hit the educational programming design aspects of the school. So that gives us a bit more leeway to consider putting some back to construction contingency, some back to maybe some add alternate stuff, and maybe even some back to Paulson. So just stay tuned. And but the good news is we're in a very good position financially and time-wise on the project. Adam, thank you so much. Adam and Colliers and Gilbane and Tecton have all been really amazing so far. I have to say that.
Thank you.
Okay, Adam, again, I would echo that as well. It's been great working with you. Thank you for the update tonight, and we'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Very good. Have a good
Thanks.
evening.
Good evening.
And that completes my report.
Thank you, sir. Board member comments, any comments? Okay, thank you. Audience response to information presented. Nobody from this audience, anyone online?
Yes.
We do, okay.
If you would like to speak, please use the raise your hand function.
Nobody stands. Thank you very much. And thanks for watching. It's nice that people tuned in. Okay, next, item 7 is the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Emily, seconded by Diane. Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Any discussion? Yes, Christine.
So I see that there's a resignation from cafeteria. Daniel here. And then a switch for a reassignment. So where does that put us with? In relation to cafeteria workers?
I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Where does that put us in regards to the staffing of cafeteria?
So, there are employees until June 30th, so by contract, when there's a resignation, we post internally. We had an internal applicant that wanted to move to a manager position, so that individual is moving in. And then that will then start the process of posting internally for the position that's vacated. If there are no internal applicants, we then have the ability to use Chartwells to hire staff members moving forward.
No, it's Heather, our HR person, so she's off screen. Thank you, Heather. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? And I'm sorry, Maureen, you were an aye?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so motion carries 9-0. So now we move on to board and committee liaison update, board committees and liaison updates. We'll start with the curriculum and student development committee, which Stephen, we met this evening, so report please.
Yes. We met this evening, members present were Mary Ann Connolly, Kathy Miller, and myself, also present. Gail Darling-Hedge, Dr. Craig Cook, and Seth Klaska. On the agenda, the first item was course adoptions for grade 6 social studies, US history, civics, and American government. The presentation covered the adjustments and revamping of grade 6 social studies curriculum. This effort involved a number of the faculty and was driven by their belief that there were adjustments that were needed to be made to the curriculum to make it more meaningful to students and to advance the attributes required of citizenship that we want for all our students. There are 3 units, each running 30 days on the 6th grade curriculum and alternating with science units. There was a strong focus on analysis and promoting alternate perspectives. Special attention was made to vertical alignment with previous grades and future grades. Work, alignment with the Common Core standards for social studies, as well as interdisciplinary alignment with other courses. There are also, in the shift and changes of the curriculum, was an increased focus on foundational knowledge and what they call cultural anchor points. These are things like geography, map reading, a whole list of things, but sometimes in the curriculum, as you pursue it, you find as you've been through it, that some fundamental questions about the world, haven't been picked up by the students. And so the faculty felt they need to strengthen that. Each unit seeks to make modern connections and relevance The intent clearly in all of this reform is to produce students with a global perspective and historical thinking. A significant change within the civics course is moving away from the required civic action project that has been in existence for some years to a civic action investigation in which students explore a possible civic action and also investigate opposing views. There are a number of reasons why this change was made. A lot of it is just structural in terms of the time that is required to pull off a civic action project. The other was concerns about making it mandatory, that it ought to be something that students have a passion for and, and can pursue based on their interests. So when asked, whether students had voice in this, the response was yes, and that the students generally felt this was an improvement. Next item on the agenda was a presentation seeking board approval of the AP psychology textbook, which is felt is more current, is aligned to a digital format, which the test will be administered in, and is up to date on terms and concepts. A previous presentation last year sought to wait until the latest version was released, and this is that version. And I would remind the board that Madison's approach is primarily our faculty and teams write the curriculum. The exception of that has been and continues to be the AP courses, of which the test is very prescriptive, and it's important that the textbooks follow what we hope will be successful for our students taking the test. The last part of the meeting was a presentation on an international trip proposal. This presentation is seeking board approval for an international trip to London and Paris in the spring of 2025. This is an 8-day trip with a focus on STEM and activities in both math and science in both countries. There'll be 5 days in London, 2 days in Paris, with a host of cultural activities designed to build and enhance global understanding and all those things that come from international travel. There was no public comment, and the meeting adjourned at 6:33 p.m. Any questions? Questions? End of report.
Thank you, sir. All right, Facilities Committee, I know you met this afternoon, Emily.
Yep, so the facilities committee met this afternoon at Brown School. We had a tour. All members of the committee were there. Me, Stephen Pinn, Diane and Vice, as well as Dr. Cook, Seth, Bill McMinn, Mr. Henderson, and Peter Anderson. And we got a tour of the two new and improved K and 1 wings. It was really a tour, and other committee members can pipe in, but I know my impression when we walked into the new wing was like, oh, it feels really nice. It feels new. It was bright. There's really pretty wall coverings that are like trees with birds. It
Almost
feels
like a mural, but.
yeah, but it's like
painted.
glass almost.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a neat material. The rooms are done. Bill said there is like a punch list of a couple of quick items they need to finish here and there over spring break. But we got to see all the rooms, the millwork, the bathrooms. It feels very welcoming. Like nice colors. They have a pattern on the floors where there's different colored tiles, and then those tiles lead into the classroom. So it's like there's the blue room and the yellow room, and there's some shared spaces between the two wings. Easy access out to the new playground.
The windows.
Yeah.
Oh, they were fantastic.
Expanded windows, yeah.
Lots of nice lights.
So nice, so bright, so like
Yeah.
cheerful
Yeah.
and fresh.
Yeah, it
Just-
was
It was really, really good. Very impressed.
And they did share, audio enhancer they have in the classrooms, which was really neat. It's called Top Cat. And some of you might be familiar with this, but it's basically almost like a microphone that the teacher wears, and they have a speaker in every classroom, sort of in the ceiling. So it's to enhance the volume of the teacher. So every new classroom in that, or in those two wings have that. It's wireless, super easy, and Pete Anderson was saying that a lot of teachers choose to wear it all the time. Not only for kids who might need extra help, but just because it helps amplify their voice. They don't need to be yelling, you know, we're talking louder. So that was really neat to see that the rooms are equipped with that technology. There's nice LED lights,
Dimmable.
LED lights, and so some of the rooms are being currently used. But it was great. You know, if you're over there, definitely recommend checking it out.
I don't think that anyone's gonna be disappointed, like, oh, we're a family that lives in North Madison and we're not gonna go to the new building. It's new, it feels new, it looks new, it is new.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, I think, a similar color scheme as well as to the new building, right, with the yellow and the blue and the.
It was, yeah.
it's-
And the same architect, by the way, Tech
Yeah.
has also worked on
It's
that.
just, it's really nice, and if you have a chance to go and look at it, I encourage you to.
Nice communal spaces for kids to do small group activities also with teachers. Stephen, do you want to add anything about Brown? About our tour?
Well, I'd reinforce what's already been said in terms of the whole business of light. But you know, you look in that classroom, when you walk in the hallway and you feel like you're walking through a forest. And then you get in the classroom and each one of them with the big windows, it's, you know, the trees and, I mean, so the atmosphere is, it's almost like being outside. I mean, it's gorgeous. Beyond that, what I always look for is, you know, what is the security? And, you know, each of those rooms have an escape window that seems manageable. The doors lock easily from the inside and are key lock on the outside. You know, I mean, just the kind of features you would expect today, so, you know, but as everyone said, the feeling, you know, for adults, and I'm sure the feeling for young people is just, you know, very, very nice.
They showed us a couple of the bathrooms too. They're really nice. There will be some other enhancements to the building. They're going to be painting, you know, when you're in that main hallway that's so tall, they're going to be painting those beams. That'll brighten it up. The library work will be done this summer, sort of closing off the library, so it'll be a corridor up to the KN1 wings. But yeah, it was great. And then Bill gave brief updates. Polson is continuing. They are meeting weekly for planning. They're interviewing construction managers for that project. In particular, you know, with auditorium and HVAC improvements and work. And then at St. Hand, the RTU project, rooftop units, is moving along as well.
And all the units are working.
And they're all working. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is exciting walking in there and seeing what the students will see from every classroom. They've just got a beautiful vantage point out.
Yeah.
And they're light, you know, even on a gray
The
day today,
skylights. in
And
that
there's
one.
skylights.
skylights in the
Yeah.
one area in the central, group meeting room and. There's like a little wooden built-in for like
Bench, yeah.
like bench seating, but like stadium bench
Yeah.
seating, a couple levels that, you know, out in one of the hallways, so that there's a lot of great modern education spaces for breakout and individualized differentiated learning and all of that. And plenty of room for the janitors and custodians equipment. It's really exciting. It
It's
really
hard
is.
to sort of, I couldn't really remember what it looked like before. It
Yeah.
feels so different. I kept
Yeah.
thinking like, this is the old space. And then even walking through the rest of school afterwards, everything just sort of felt
fresher and brighter.
And it was nice to see, like we had talked about that they were going to do, and we knew that they did, like updated that entrance vestibule for
Oh,
security
yeah, the
purposes.
front
And then the
office.
front offices with all the new office space, and
Mm-hmm.
the nurse's office is bigger with a nice new bathroom,
Mhm.
bigger bathroom. And it was just nice to see in person what we had talked about and what, they said was gonna look like, and then we're like, now you can see it, and it's just. It's nice to see it being updated and a nicer space for the kids.
Yeah.
And teachers.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was fun.
Yeah,
It's a fun field trip.
thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. All right, Finance Committee.
All right, thank you, Seth. The Finance Committee met tonight at 6:36. Emily, Christine, Seth, Dr. Cook, and Stacy Novich were all in attendance. We covered two main items on the agenda. As you know, every year if we have excess funds, we return them to the town. Over the last 5 years, I think we've averaged about $200,000 to $240,000 returned to the town. That represents about 1/3 of 1% of the school board's or the Board of Education's budget. So the first item, we discussed a request to use the previous year's 2022-23's return funds to cover the current year's 23-24 special education costs. Dr. Cook gave a great overview of that. And we've circulated a draft letter to each member. Basically, the Board of Education would like to request would like to request that district funds that were returned to the town at the end of the previous fiscal year, in the amount of $226,000, be returned to the Board of Education to cover unanticipated costs. These costs are detailed in the draft. Basically, they come down to changes in legislation that would result in an additional $135,000 of unanticipated costs for special education. And then secondly, an increase in outplacements for at least $95,000. So later on, perhaps in the meeting, we'd like to add an agenda item to review and approve this letter. That will take place later. The second item on the agenda was to discuss the 2024-25 budget reduction. As you know, the Board of Finance has requested $240,000 in reductions. And I'd like to point out that over the last 5 years, the Board of Education's average increase is about 1.24%. So we do run a lean operation, but we are committed to being a responsible team player in the town for the benefit of all the taxpayers. So Dr. Cook, along with Stacy and the administration, dove deep to try to find cuts. And they identified potential cuts in the amount of $240,000, which we will just talk about today, but we don't really need to vote on it yet. That was for the May meeting. So, and Dr. Chris, please feel free to step in and correct or fill in where I'm getting things wrong. They identified approximately $30,000 in the furniture for Jeffrey and Ryerson that we don't have to spend or can find existing funds for the maintenance budget to cover that. There's another $40,000 in Danahan Bridge furniture that we will hold off on. There's $90,000 in the hand band uniforms that we will perhaps hold off on. We hope to be able to use end of year savings if there are any towards that. Next would be, as you also know, our request for a waiver for the reading curriculum was denied, but hope still lives. It was deferred. The decision was deferred for another year. So we had budgeted approximately $106,000 to get ready for that change. But we think we can reduce that to $56,000. That's a $50,000 savings, and perhaps another $32,000 from the program. And I think that about covers we did quick math, I think that's about $240,000. So I know that's a lot of numbers to throw at you at short notice, but we had a good discussion. And there were no comments. Well, we had a good discussion, but no public comments. And the meeting was adjourned at, I think, 7:12, 7:15, something like that. So.
I have a question. So I listened in on the meeting, but I would ask Dr. Cook if you could speak in a little bit more detail regarding the change in legislation that resulted in unanticipated costs to us of $135,000, just so that it's very clear what that money is
Absolutely.
about, and then also about the $95,000.
Absolutely. So before I start on that, there was one piece I left out in terms of band uniforms. There's also a potential other option where the town would fund it out of ARPA funds. And so Seth had attended a meeting earlier and a few months ago, brought that back. I've talked to the town when they are completing ARPA funding expenditures. There's funds left over in some of those accounts. They will sweep those up, basically put those together, and they're anticipating it could be around $75,000 or so, which could help fund the majority of the band uniforms. They have to have those funds identified by June 30th and then expended by September 1st or potentially even a little bit later, but they want to make sure that they're expending all the grant funds, otherwise it goes back to the federal government. So I think that's a great use of funding for that.
Yeah, just to underline the
Yeah.
fact that we are cognizant of the needs.
Yes, yeah, thank you. In terms of Diane's question, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to this. So when the when the administration presented its budget from last year and when the board approved that, unknown to us was that the legislator would take action on our requirements for a transition program in Connecticut. And so prior to action through the legislation that happened very late in the legislation session, I believe it happened in like May or June, that a student would be exited from the transition program on their 22nd birthday. So what we would do is plan for those students typically at the end of the month of their 22nd birthday. And this is actually occurring. There were students that are turning 22 in September. And so we were actually in the process of transitioning them out rather than having them come back for just a month at the new school year. They changed that to the end of the 22nd, the school year when they turned 22. And so some students had then another 9 or 10 months of eligibility to be part of the transition program. We of course communicated that with those families and they chose to stay. And as you can imagine, there was quite a bit of additional cost with that. So that quickly was calculated by Dr. Battaglia to be $134,000. So we've known that from the beginning. We've shared that with the board, the finance committee. But we were waiting for the audit to complete and then also see where we were with the outplacement costs. So that was the other half of your question. So currently we've seen outplacement costs go up. We have asked for more funding in next year's budget, and that's still in the next year's budget. And we just haven't had as many students coming back or moving out of the districts as we have moved into the district. So we're currently trending a negative of over $100,000. The other piece of that is the reimbursement from the state. Madison will not receive as much as we had anticipated at the beginning of the school year. The state legislator had put $25 million more into that account, but however, what happens is that on March 1st, they determine all the districts who have put in their outplacement costs and how much money they have to expend to all those districts. And then there's a formula that they use. And new to that formula is a reduction for districts they consider wealthy districts. So Madison got hit again on that relatively new addition to the formula. So we're not receiving as much money back in the state as we had anticipated to help cover those outplacement costs.
Right. So an increase in costs, reduction in funds, we'd like to tap in to the previously returned money.
As opposed to tapping into our special education fund.
Yes, that would be the intent. And then, and so there would be a letter, Dr. Cook, as a draft of a letter to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. That one, that request.
I just thought it was important to make the distinction that it wasn't like poor planning on our part, that when it comes to special education, there are often unexpected costs that come up, like increase in costs, and also you never know what Hartford is going to do next. And so that was I think, a huge problem. I'm making that point because I have heard other people elsewhere make comments about, the special education cost for Board of Ed. And it's not, like a typical cost. It's not something that you can really anticipate very well.
Yeah, and really, that's what our undesignated, we have a fund that we established for special education reserves. But if we use that and we dwindle it below the level that we could get hit with unexpected costs the following year. You have 2 outplacements that move into the district mid-year, it could be $300,000 with transportation in addition to the outplacement itself. So the goal is to use this money to kind of offset what we would have instead taken out of the reserve fund. So what'll just procedurally at position number 12 on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to add an agenda item. Because this is a regular meeting of the board, we have the ability to add an agenda item if we vote for it. So I'll ask for a motion to add an agenda item to approve that the request and the memo that Dr. Cook prepared. And then assuming that gets added, then action item 12 will be to the motion to approve that we take that action. And then everything else below will be renumbered from your packet.
I have another question.
Yes.
So we talked about potential budget cuts based on what Board of Finance wants us to do. And I know it's not an action item tonight, so I'm just curious as to when it will be an action item for the board.
We would look at, as we did last year, is probably after the budget is set in May, and then the next board meeting after that.
And then I did want to make the point that, the potential budget cuts that you were saying you spoke to the administration about, that I recognize that the budget cuts are sort of like one-off things like, furniture for Jeffrey Ryerson and the Daniel Hand High School bridge furniture. And I think that, those are a good place to make cuts, simply because it's not something that you want to add to the bottom line of the budget that you add to for the next year, because they're not an annual expense. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Galen? No? Okay. Thank you, Galen. All right, Personnel Committee, Maureen.
Hello, we have not met. There isn't an update.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have to take so long making that report?
I know, right?
All right, Policy Committee, Diane.
We have not met, but we do have some items in your packet this evening. There are policies for rescission that are a first read. Then there are policies for rescission that we're asking for a waiving of the second read, which means it would be an action item tonight. And then there are policies for review, which are also a first read, so there's only 2 action items. And then they're in the 8,000 series, they're both for rescission. It's 8110, purpose and role of the board, and 8111, board liaison to schools. And I just wanted to know, if you look at your Shipman and Goodman notes, the 8110, purpose and role of the board, they say the policy is redundant, and I just wanted to make sure that you understood it. It's redundant with policy 9210, role of board and members, which we have already updated, and it is indeed redundant. And then the 8111, board liaison to schools, we don't actually follow that policy. That's not how we do things, and so that's why it's up to this and the report.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Is the 8110, did we determine that was the oldest surviving policy in place?
I think so, is that right? Is that
72, yeah.
1972, yeah.
It's the oldest one, huh?
It's time for it to.
We have a gold watch for the policy.
No, no candies, no.
All right, any other questions for Diane? No, thank you. Learn liaison, Mary Ann.
We haven't met.
Okay,
Next week.
thank you. Okay, so item number 10 is an action item. I need a motion to waive the second reading and rescind the following policies. 8110, purpose and role of the board, and 8111, board liaison to schools.
So moved.
Diane,
Second.
seconded by Emily. Thank you. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Action item 11. I need a motion to approve the disposal of electronic waste, which is in the packet. This is common. So moved by Emily.
Second.
Emily, seconded by Diane. Thank you. Any discussion?
I think we had talked about it before, what happens to that?
We recycle it with through a company.
And
Yeah.
so none of them can be like refurbished or.
Yeah, I mean, we saved the letter Q from a couple of them just in case we need to.
It should be for
We
scrap.
do have plenty of spare parts, like we do keep some for that, but these are like Chromebooks who've been used by middle school kids for like 4 years. Yeah.
Imagine we could swap out of that, huh?
Anything else?
So they look like.
Anything else?
And
No?
considering that iPads are now, what, like 11th generation?
I thought like
Fifth generation. I think I have a second generation. Oh.
Like your
I don't think it
coffee.
turned on.
Worse than old Texas Instruments 99. 99. All right, all in favor of moving, of approving the disposal of electronic waste? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. All right, so here's the part of the evening where I would like to entertain a motion to add an agenda item to approve a request that the district funds return to the town at the end of the previous fiscal year, 2022-2023, in the amount of $226,000 be returned to the Board of Education to cover unanticipated special education costs. Do I have a motion to add that to the, okay, Diane? Then a second, Emily, thank you. All right, now we discuss, any discussion on whether to add that agenda item to tonight's meeting? No discussion, all in favor of adding the item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions, motion carries 9-0.
So is that number, I'm sorry, number 12 now?
That, so now, that was like not an action item, that was,
Okay.
so now action item 12 becomes,
Okay.
I will entertain a motion to approve a request that the district funds return to the town at the end of the previous fiscal year, 2022-2023, in the amount of $226,000 be returned to the Board of Education to cover unanticipated special education costs. Do I have a motion to take that action? Diane, seconded by Mary Ann, thank you. Discussion on whether to request that $226,000 back to cover unanticipated special ed costs.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we're actually asking for at least 226 or the exact 226?
I believe the way the memo, we're gonna change the wording of the memo to say at least 95,000. Because by now it's over 95,000 in that second expenditure category, that because of the lower reimbursement from the state that we thought we would get. So that raises the total above 226,000,
So I'm just saying that
but we're just seeking
we're only asking.
226,000.
Correct, we're asking
Yeah.
for the funds that we return.
Yeah.
So, no problem.
I'm just curious why we're not asking for the whole thing, because it was like over 226.
You mean the extra $512?
Yeah.
I could adjust the
I'm
memo
saying-
if you asked me to adjust the
Well,
memo.
I'm just saying, like, why not?
Well, I mean, I think the point was that was money that we returned, so we're asking for that to be returned to us because we identified that.
Okay, so then will they consider only the amount that we ask, or will they consider like returning the whole thing? Like, I'm just curious, like, I'm not sure how.
I think if we were looking to get the entire amount, which was
So you're just saying
two
that.
hundred $26,541, we should put that in the memo.
I'm just saying,
Yes, yeah.
Why not?
Okay, sure.
Well, I mean, it's up for discussion, I'm just.
Not
saying, like,
arguing against it,
Instead
yeah.
of making like a roundabout number, like,
Just to make it the entire amount.
yeah, like we returned
You want
this.
it all back.
And we're still, in the negative
Yeah.
number with regard to special
fine.
education.
All right, so why don't we handle that as if we just discuss and do we all kind of agree by consensus that the superintendent can change the memo to the exact amount? Then we can vote on the matter and with just directing the superintendent by our
What's the
consensus.
motion that's on the floor?
Or we can change the motion
You have to
to
amend the motion.
$226,541. We could do that.
I think you need to amend the motion to the amount that you want him to ask, otherwise the motion stands. If we don't.
Since you brought the first motion, I assume you will treat that as a friendly motion,
Yes.
a friendly amendment. Okay, so friendly amendment to add
I just want Zoe to do more work.
$541.
Between meetings. One more time.
Which is a
Gotta take the
motion
draft off anyway.
to equal
That's true.
Yeah.
Should have to.
226,541. Okay, so that's by Diane. Do I have a second to that friendly amendment to add $541? Second would be Galen.
So can I say something?
Okay, so now there's a friendly amendment to add $541 to the motion so that it equals $226,541. Brought the friendly amendment brought by Diane to her previous motion, seconded by Galen. Open to discussion, Christine.
So I agree with what Diane is saying, but then if that's the case, then financially, if I were the accountant looking at it, then I would want all the numbers to line up. And I wouldn't want any estimated numbers. So I wouldn't want the 135, I would want a specific number. And then I would also want a specific number that would total the 226,512. To make it look
541, yeah.
540, whatever it is. So it all aligns,
Are those rounded numbers, the 135?
yes.
On the 95, it says at least 95, so we know that's a rounded number. But
Correct.
the 135, is that a rounded number?
The 135 is no total.
Yes, so I think if you're being specific, then you have to be specific with all. The entire balance. So it flows,
But so the total though is.
it's 230,
Right, so
which
we're not
doesn't
even
equal
asking.
226, right?
We're asking
thank you.
for,
Right,
Not even.
not
enough to
even the
cover.
right, so we're just asking, while our expenses are greater than what we gave you back, we're just asking for what we got. To help cover this.
right,
Yeah, so we're not asking
So-
for what we need, we're asking
Correct.
for what we returned, and what we
Correct.
returned was 226,541.
And Craig,
That's why
do
it's
you
that
feel that the administration can cover the 5,000 or so difference? Or isn't that
Or
right?
at least so what we're probably looking at is, within other special ed accounts, and then we look at other areas as well. So yeah, we feel we will be able to without going back to the town. So what I would suggest then, based on the discussion, I go back and work with Dr. Pataglia and find out exactly what that 135 is, the impact of the legislation. So that might be 138, $275. And then say at least the 95. So we're showing costs beyond the 226,541.
But I mean, I don't really know that that's necessary, in my opinion, because we're not asking for what we need, we're asking for what we returned. And we returned 226,541. So what we're asking is for what we returned, the 226,541. We're not asking for what our deficit is, we're not asking for what we need and what we actually need to spend. We're not asking for that.
This is a draft.
Yeah,
But we want to
Yeah,
build,
so we
we
just
just work.
Yeah,
We need to get this.
but it probably would take all of 15 minutes to get the right number. of
Yeah,
requests.
that makes
It won't
sense.
take-
it's not too
Yeah,
big deal.
no, thank you.
We just didn't wanna like.
Yeah, I know, I appreciate
Give
that,
her
but
something
yeah,
else that she
Yep.
needs to do.
yep, no, I
So
appreciate
can we
that.
still vote and approve this? And
Just
try to
change the numbers.
finalize it?
Yeah,
Well, the other thing we have to consider is. This has to go to the Board of Selectmen for their vote and then the Board of Finance. Is the Board of Finance going to? Treat a request for something more than the exact amount we returned? As something that they wouldn't want to consider, would they only want to consider the amount we returned? So that if there's a 10 or 15 or $17,231 differential, would they still just like to return? What we returned to the town? So it's a symbolic, like, here's how much we returned, can we get it back? We can handle the
I mean, we're
rest.
not saying like, hey, look at all the money that we gave back, and we want all the money that we need, we're just saying, give us what we gave you last year,
please.
please.
Yeah.
If you would, please kind of consider it, we would greatly appreciate it.
Oftentimes I am in attendance at the meetings, they ask me to come and speak to the memo, so I can always answer that question, I can just say, clarify, this is all we're asking for. And we can look at the memo and make sure that's clear.
And I think it gives them cover too, because they can say, oh, here's found money from the district, we're gonna give it back to them. You know what I mean? I think there's strength in that argument.
Okay, so back to
Clear.
the action item motion on the floor.
So that would keep the friendly amendment exactly the same. It's a friendly amendment by Diane, seconded by Galen, to add $541 to the motion so that it equals $226,541 that we are seeking to be returned. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the friendly amendment, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. So now we go back to the action item 12. And the motion on the floor is okay, so I'm gonna change this 226 to 226,541.
No,
Okay, so with the action of the amendment added. Motion by Diane, seconded by Mary Ann. To approve a request that the district funds return to the town at the end of the previous fiscal year, 2022 to 2023, in the amount of $226,541 be returned to the Board of Education to cover unanticipated special education costs. Any further discussion on that motion?
so,
To cover, if it doesn't say completely covered, it says that
Okay.
cover unanticipated costs, not all of them. So I think we're covered. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Action, newly numbered action item 13. Motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2024 Board of Education meeting.
so moved.
By Diane, seconded by
Second.
Emily. Thank you. Discussion on the minutes. Any discussion, any amendments? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. So now on our schedule, we have a proposed executive session, but newly numbered action item 14A. I need a motion to enter into executive session to discuss non-renewals for the 24-25 school year. Oh, yeah, I probably should. That motion will include, okay, so I need a motion to enter into executive session with Heather Dobson and Dr. Cook to discuss non-renewals for the 24-25 school year.
So moved. Second.
Only seconded by Diane, thank you.
Any discussion on whether we should enter into executive session for those purposes with those folks involved? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. We shall now move ourselves. Thank you.
I'm cutting off the audio and the video. We have no other working conference room in this building right now, so you're not moving.
Oh,
We can hear
Yeah,
it.
fine.
We could stand around the cotton machines.
Item, I need a motion to return to regular session.
So Second.
Okay, Stephen, I'll give Stephen that motion, seconded by Diane. Thank you. Any discussion on returning into regular session? Seeing none, all in favor of returning to regular session? Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. So now action item 15. I need a motion for non-renewal for the 24-25 school year. And the motion would be that the contract for employment for Megan Bucknell and Allison McMahon not be renewed for the following year based upon a reduction in force upon its expiration at the end of the 2023-2024 school year, and that the superintendent of schools is directed to advise such persons in writing of this action. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Stephen,
Second.
seconded by Diane. Any discussion? I would just start this discussion off by saying that any reduction in force is a solemn and somber event for the board. We recognize that we have a duty to keep faith with the town, with the taxpayer and the voter. That if we are in the position of having a reduction in enrollment, we have to have a concomitant reduction in force. This is not an expression of a lack of appreciation or a lack of the skill and abilities of the two folks at issue. We thank them very much for their service. And we don't like doing this, but we have to. Any further discussion? Any other questions for the record? Okay, vote all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries 9-0. Sorry and thank you. Future agenda items, any requests for future agenda items?
I don't have a request, but I just wanted to follow up with our agenda from last meeting. I spoke with Lisa Dean and I spoke with Kathy Barden, and they have met and talked to put a program together to approach TJ Salutary and to see what we can do about getting a program in the schools for the kids, and also with some community involvement. So when they get together, I'll report back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other future agenda item requests? Seeing none, any meetings and dates of importance are attached to your packets. Diane, are there any that are inaccurate?
I will.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Diane, seconded by Mary Ann. At 9:55. Oh, sorry, 8, yep, 8, quite right. Seeing if you were paying attention. 8:55 PM, all in favor of adjournment, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you all.